that was calculated to be what, about 130 points stronger than Rybka 2?
Yeah, it depends, of course, on the conditions, the time control, these kind of things. But yeah, that was a year of work. Yeah.
That was insane. Nobody in the computer chess hobby expected such a huge strength gain in one version to the next. Can you tell us a little how you pulled that off? For example, how much of the improvement was due to your association with Grandmaster Larry Kaufman?
Larry did several things on our team. I mean, he was also running these man versus machine matches. And what he was doing, what we did for a while anyways, was he was trying to tune the weights. That means I would give him a Rybka version which had basically a weights file, and he could propose changes to the weights. He could say, listen, I think that knights are valued too little or things like that, and he would propose it to me, and then I would run it through the test, and I would decide whether to keep the change or not. So that was basically a way to do evaluation tuning.
Who else joined the Rybka team and contributed to the end product, and in what capacities do they serve? Give us their names, what they do, and what country they're from.
Well, let me just say first that we have a great team. I'm really happy with everybody, and I'm really thankful to have them all on board. As far as who's on the team, I'll start with Lukas Cimiati. He's a German medical doctor, and he runs our hardware, our cluster, all kinds of testing, tournament-related testing and operation. Second is Jeroen Newman. He's our main book author. He prepares our opening book for tournament play and also for commercial publication. Next is Iveta, my wife. She does all kinds of testing. Also brainstorming, over dinner and stuff like that, but mostly she does testing. Larry, we have Larry Kaufman. We've already discussed him. He did evaluation tuning and also the man versus machine matches. We also have the two Kling brothers, Felix and Christoph. They are responsible for our website. So Christoph made the website in the first place. He's not a chess player, he's just a computer guy. And then Felix has maintained the website. He's writing reports. He's also involved in our forum as a moderator and as a very active poster. And then we have also two other guys. We have Nick Carlin, who is also in our book team. He's also preparing the opening book for tournaments. He's told me that he's retired now. He's quite busy with other things, but he did a lot of book work for us. And we also have Hans van der Zeyden, who is our operator. He goes around the world operating Rybka, basically representing us in tournaments and playing her moves, at the board. And also, let me add one other guy who I haven't formally added to the team, but I will very soon, that's Yuri Dufek. He is now doing also opening book preparation for us in tournaments, and also he's preparing a commercial book for release.
Despite the huge increase in playing strength that we saw in Rybka 3, there were, as you know, a number of bugs that users found in the weeks that followed. There was some controversy about your decision not to issue a patched version of Rybka 3. On one hand, there were those who said, well, we should be grateful because Rybka 3 is such a big leap forward. And there were others, like me for instance, who said, what about the principle of the product working like it's supposed to? Vaz, what was your rationale for not patching the problems that users uncovered in Rybka 3?
That's a good question. First of all, I think you're about 80% right. I mean, let me just say this though, there are no bugs that are real showstoppers. I would have fixed that somehow. But the reason that we haven't had a bug fix is that I didn't really manage my schedule in the best way. I stacked things one after the other. So when I released Rybka 3, I basically had a date when it had to be released because I had two very urgent things that I had already promised. One being that we were moving to Poland, and we had already, bought the house and everything was set, and that takes longer than you might think. And the second thing was the cluster. I told Lukas that we're going to do the clustering project, and he'd already bought the hardware for it. And I felt like it was pretty much out of the question for me to say, listen, I hope you enjoy your computers, but I'm not going to do what I said. So I made these promises, and I felt like those had to take priority, and so that's what I did. I had to move on.
All right, to sum up, Rybka 3 was a phenomenal leap forward, bugs and all. two independent websites, CCRL and CEGT, ran Rybka 3 on 4 CPUs in the 3200 ELO range at Blitz time controls, about 400 ELO points higher than the #1 human-rated player in the world. Since then, you've been working on the upcoming release of Rybka 4 and various other projects. The most exciting of these has been actually seen in competition as Cluster Rybka. Talk us through the whole Cluster Rybka project. What exactly is it?
Well, quite simply, it's the ability to use multiple computers. Previously, Rybka, of course, was multi-processor capable. That means she could use multiple processors on one computer, but she could not use 2 computers or 3 computers together. So that was the goal of the project. There are 2 uses, well, actually 3 uses for it. One is it's a kind of a tournament weapon and kind of a publicity thing. I'm not going to deny that. The second thing is it helps me to develop new ways to do multiprocessing, which are going to be useful, I think, for the next generation of hardware. I wanted to get a head start on that. Thinking about how to run Rybka on a cluster helps me to think about all kinds of other things, and these things are all interrelated. And so I felt like this is something that deserves some attention. Technically, what the cluster doesn't have is the communication between the machines and the cluster is glacial compared to the communication inside a machine, between different cores on a CPU. And so you have to have much fewer communication. You can't have, it's called shared memory. That means you can't share the state as easily between the machines. And that's what makes it kind of an interesting, unique problem, which is still related to other aspects of Rybka, other aspects of search. That's the second reason. And the third reason is, as you know, we have this internet posting coming up. And I felt like this would be something, a really nice high-end item to rent for people who really need every last ELO point and who are willing to pay for it. I felt like this would be a great product for them. It's not a large number of people, but for some people it has tremendous value.
So at this point, how many independent CPUs are working simultaneously on Cluster Rybka?
So currently, Lukas has 9 computers. Each computer has 2 sockets and 4 cores. So altogether, there is 72 cores that are working together. Or you could say 72 little Rybka versions that are all working with each other to try to decide what the next move is going to be. That number could be higher. This is simply what he has right now. That's where we're at right now.
Explain how much stronger Cluster Rybka is compared to, let's say, a top-end quad-core that you can buy, off the shelf right now. Can you quantify that somehow?
Yeah, roughly. So the clustering algorithm seems to work quite well for having 9 computers. I don't have an exact number right now, but I think we're something like 130 or 140 ELO above one of the machines. So if you've got 9 machines, that'll play about 130 to 140 ELO stronger than just one of those machines. Now, each of Lukas's machines is itself a little bit stronger than a quad. So I think, if you're talking about like a normal home quad, then we're talking about something that's more than 200 ELO just from the hardware, not including the software improvements, not related to clustering.
So given what we know about Intel's research and development roadmap, how do you see Cluster Rybka evolving in the years ahead?
Well, first of all, it's hard to predict these things, even with all the roadmaps. I mean, these things always take unexpected turns, but it seems like Intel is quite dedicated now to adding more cores on one machine, and even adding more CPUs on one, on one motherboard. There is actually just now released a new, obviously for Intel internal use only, a new chip which